Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates. I've done some testing with the new heroes, the old changed heroes, and how some of the changes in the Bespin patch affects the heroes, and I thought I'd go over them in this video. It's going to be both a little bit of tips and tricks, but also just some general useful information, so let's jump straight into it. Let's start off with Dengar. Even though he is a real beast and a lot of people's new favorite hero, he is pretty glitched out. I'm sure you've all seen the posts on Reddit, Twitter, or just experienced yourself that he is able to one-shot some heroes with the Hurricane Strike. Well, after seeing all those posts, I decided to test that out myself and see if it was true. And well, it sort of was. Against most of the heroes, it does reasonable damage at around 20, which to me seems perfectly alright. However, against Luke, it one-shots him no matter his health, as you can see by this clip. This is obviously a huge bug that shouldn't be in the game, and multiple of the developers have already confirmed that they are working on a hotfix for that, so it should be fixed very soon. I did however see some posts on Reddit claiming that his Hurricane Strike could wipe out 4 heroes at once, but with all the testing we did, we only managed to one-shot Luke with it. Another test we did was Hurricane Strike versus backed-bombed players, and unfortunately that actually did not kill them, which again is super annoying. I really wish they would match the hero abilities to go through the back-to-bomb. I will show you some more back-to-bomb testing later in the video as well. Now over to Dengar's Explosive Rush ability. This ability also seems to be quite glitched. I'm not sure exactly what is up with it, but it seems like he throws out both sticky bombs and proximity bombs, and a lot of times those sticky bombs don't actually explode, as you can see. The Rebel blows up, but 9 just walks around with a beeping bomb that doesn't explode. A bit frustrating, but hopefully another thing they are looking into. Another cool thing I noticed with Dengar is that if you use his melee ability, he actually kicks the enemy instead of using his fists or weapon. Moving on to Lando. First off, now that he and his co-pilot 9 are joined together, you can replay the scene from Return of the Jedi when they blow up the Death Star. Another fun thing is that Lando shares the same flying ability as 9, making them into a very good team as they can have a real surprise element on the enemies. If you haven't seen my video on flying 9-nub, I will link it in the description below. If we move over to his other abilities, I did some more testing with his trap. I thought this trap only worked if you actually picked up the power-up, but apparently you just need to get within a couple of meters from it to get shocked, which is good to see, as otherwise it would have been a little bit too weak. Another thing to note is that it always seems to do 80 damage to enemies, meaning that if they get shocked, you just need to shoot them once in order to kill them. A good thing to keep in mind whenever you're using Lando. Lastly, I wanted to get a clear view of how a crit actually looks with Lando, as it can be a bit hard to see, and as you can see in this clip, the impact gets a fairly big explosion when Lando crits, and the shot does 2.5 times the normal damage. So now you know what to look out for when you're using Lando. If you would have gotten the crit on a normal player, they would most likely have died in one shot, at least at close to medium range. Next up, I tested out Boba Fett a little bit after the patch, and his lock-on missile is now back, but it isn't as overpowered as at the launch of the game. Danny said the lock-on worked below 25 meters, but I don't quite understand what that actually means, because it is possible to shoot someone from a very long range and it still locks on. The difference we did notice, however, is that you need to hit them very closely in order for it to lock on, and you can't just fire it in enemy's general direction like you could before. So it gives you a little bit of guidance, but not too much. We also tried the flamethrower, as that was supposed to have received a buff. It does last longer, but I didn't notice any huge difference on the actual effect of the flamethrower. It still felt a little bit unresponsive, as you can see here. The next buffed hero is Palpatine, who I played as a little bit during my livestream, so apologies that the quality isn't the best, but his buff is spot on in my opinion, as his lightning now lasts longer and takes a shorter time to recharge. On top of that, it does a little bit more damage than before. This means that you won't be completely vulnerable after you've killed 2 people and your lightning is out of energy. Lastly, I would just like to show off 3 star cards against the heroes. First off, we have the pulse cannon, which has now been nerfed and doesn't do as much damage as before against heroes. With a full on hit on Luke, it does about 23 damage, and that's on one of the weakest heroes in the game, which is fairly reasonable considering how much he usually runs around. Secondly, we have the disruption card, which actually works against some heroes. If you do it on a lightsaber hero like Luke, nothing happens, but on blaster heroes such as Lando, it does overheat the weapon, which I personally think is a little bit too overpowered. It doesn't make it overheat as bad as on the infantry, where it gets stuck on the top, but it still goes from nothing to a fully overheated weapon, and in game modes like Hero Hunt that's gonna be impossible for the blaster heroes as they will just get overheated all the time. Lastly, we have the Bacta Bomb, which according to the patch notes shouldn't be as effective against hero abilities anymore, and as you can see it still allowed you to tank the Hurricane Strike from Dengar, which is quite ridiculous, and if you try out Luke you can still tank his lightsaber, which again doesn't really make sense either. You can however kill Bacta Bombed people with Force Push and Force Rush now, which is good news. I personally do think that lightsabers and things like Hurricane Strike should still kill through the Bacta Bomb, but that might have been intentional on DICE's end. Big thanks to Tesko249, Dehydron and a couple of other subscribers for helping out with the recordings for the video. Well, that brings this video to an end. A little bit different compared to what I usually do, but I hope you learned something new from this video, and hopefully some of the things I brought up will be patched very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.